The Book of Enoch says the sky is a dome, a physical one, solid, resting on the edges of the earth with doors cut into it for the sun to pass through. Most people hear that and stop, because the dome is the headline, but the dome is not the point, the dome is the floor, and there's a room on top of it. Chapter 14 describes a man walking through that ceiling and coming out the other side into a temple made of fire and ice. And there's a verse in there I've been sitting with for a while now, because it says, "The floor of God's throne room is made from the same stars you can see from your backyard tonight." The sky you're looking up at isn't covering something. It is something. The underside of a room you were never supposed to see, and the part that really stopped me is this. Enoch walks in. Every angel in heaven is locked outside. The cherubim, the seraphim, the highest order of being in the tradition, they can't even look through the door. But a man can. The Aramaic fragments from Qumran date this material to the 3rd century BC. This isn't late, this isn't medieval, this isn't fringe. This was written while the Hebrew Bible was still being put together, and nobody in the church talks about it. Before I go further, if you guys wanted the uncensored version of the Ethiopian Bible, all 88 books, you can check out our website. Honestly, no one is providing you all 88 books uncensored. Our website is your way to go. And also the personal readings are on the website too. Both links are in the description, or scan this QR code. So the word behind the ceiling in the Hebrew tradition is rakia. In Genesis, God creates it on the 2nd day to separate the upper waters from the lower waters. That's it. That's all Genesis tells you. A divider between water above and water below. And then the story moves on. First Enoch does not move on. Enoch is taken by angelic guides to the literal edge of the earth, and when he arrives he reports seeing the ends of the earth whereon the heaven rests and the portals of the heaven opening. That's chapter 33. The sky comes down and meets the ground like a bowl turned upside down. And at the point where it touches, there are doors. Physical doors. Openings that things pass through on a schedule. I want to be careful here. People take this text and run to flat earth with it, and I'm not doing that. Rob Skiba and a whole wave of internet figures used First Enoch as proof that the ancient Hebrews demanded a flat, enclosed earth, and groups like Answers in Genesis pushed back hard, pointing out that the text contradicts the modern flat earth spotlight model for the sun. I've read both sides. What I'm doing is something different. I'm reading what the author wrote and asking why he wrote it with this much mechanical detail. Because this isn't the poetry of Genesis. This is something closer to a manual. If you grew up hearing about the firmament in church or Sunday school, I want to know what they told you it was. I got almost nothing, and I've talked to people who got completely different explanations depending on the denomination they were raised in. The ceiling is one thing. How it operates is what makes this text unusual. Chapter 72 lays out the sun's path through 6 gates in the east and 6 in the west. The sun rises through one gate, crosses the sky along the inner surface of the dome, and sets through the matching gate on the opposite side. Each gate corresponds to a different part of the year. As the seasons shift, the sun moves to a different gate, and the length of the day changes accordingly. But the detail that caught me is what happens after sunset. The text says the sun goes down from the heaven and returns through the north in order to reach the east. Chapter 72, verse 5. The sun doesn't go underground. It doesn't pass through some underworld beneath the earth the way other ancient traditions describe it. It loops back behind the dome, traveling north, above the earth but outside the visible sky, and comes around to the eastern gate again for sunrise. That is not poetry, that's a flight path. The gates or portals, the Ge'ez word does both, and translators pick whichever they prefer. I've even seen one version that uses windows. The point is they're openings in a solid surface, and the sun passes through them on a fixed rotation. And that rotation produces a 364-day year. Exactly 52 weeks. Every quarter is 91 days. Every quarter divides evenly by 7, giving you 13 weeks. No remainder, no drift. Every holiday, every feast, every appointed time falls on the same weekday, year after year after year. The Aramaic fragments from Qumran, specifically 4Q208 and 4Q209, show even finer detail. Smaller openings inside the main gates track the daily position of the sun, and 4 intercalary days are inserted at the end of each season to bring the base count from 360 up to 364. Those fragments are small. Some of them are the size of a playing card. And the astronomical tables compressed onto them are so dense that scholars had to reconstruct full seasonal cycles from columns of numbers you could cover with your palm. But the actual solar year is 365 and a quarter days long. So this calendar loses a day every year, and whoever designed it could measure a solstice. They had the real number. They wrote 364 anyway. Here's my read, and I want to mark it clearly as mine. I don't think the author was trying to be accurate. I think he was trying to be perfect. A year that divides cleanly into weeks, quarters, and seasons with zero leftover. That's not measurement. That's theology dressed in arithmetic. The text doesn't explain the choice. It just gives you the numbers and stands behind them. But the precision, 6 gates, 12 positions, 4 intercalary days, 52 weeks is so deliberate that calling it a mistake would be harder to believe than calling it a statement. That's what's happening at the ceiling. What's happening above it is where the text leaves everything else in the Bible behind. Above the dome, 1 Enoch describes storage chambers for weather. The text calls them treasuries or storehouses, and they hold snow, hail, rain, wind, thunder, and lightning. Every weather event you've experienced, according to this author, was released from a chamber above the sky by a specific angel who opened the door at the right moment. This isn't vague. Each storehouse has its own spirit in charge. The spirit of the hoarfrost is his own angel. The spirit of the hail is a good angel. The spirit of the snow has a particular strength. Thunder and lightning share a treasury, but move through different spirits, and the text says the thunder is held in with a bridle and turned back by the power of the Spirit and pushed forward. That's chapter 60. Thunder on a leash, lightning being steered. 4 types of storehouses. Wind, thunder and lightning, water and rain, and the luminaries themselves, each managed, each rationed, each released with intent. Some of the wind portals bring growth, others bring frost and destruction. The text distinguishes between them. Weather, in this system, is not random. It is targeted. Why would someone write weather that way? Because the Book of Job told them they couldn't see it. In Job 38, God speaks from a whirlwind and challenges Job directly. Have you entered the storehouse of the snow? Have you seen the armory of the hail? The answer for Job is no. You're human. You can't see the machinery behind the world. But Enoch does. The author of 1 Enoch takes that challenge and answers it. Enoch declares that he saw the treasuries of all the winds, saw the storehouses of the hail. Same words, same images, opposite conclusion. Job is told the door is closed. Enoch says he walked through it. That's not an accident. That is a writer who read Job, disagreed with the premise, and wrote a rebuttal where his patriarch is granted the exact access that Job was denied. That connection between Enoch and Job. Were you ever taught those 2 texts together or always separately? I didn't hear them mentioned in the same sentence until I was past 30, and once you see the overlap, you can't go back to reading either one the same way. And the storehouses aren't the only thing being managed above and around the ceiling. Chapter 60 introduces something I didn't expect. The text genders the water. The waters above the firmament, the ones held back by the dome, are called male. The waters below the oceans and the underground sources are called female. And the text says the spirit of the sea is masculine and strong and draws it back with a rein, pulling the water like you'd pull a horse. Think about what that means. The upper waters and the lower waters want to meet. That's the language the text uses. And the last time they did meet, the last time that restraint failed, was the flood. The firmament, the angels with their reins, the whole system of managed separation, that's what stands between the world and another Genesis flood. The dome isn't just architecture, it's a dam, and something is actively holding it shut. The same chapter puts 2 creatures at the extreme edges of the map. Leviathan, female, in the deepest part of the ocean. Behemoth, male, in a desert called Duidain, east of Eden, both placed there during creation. Both waiting. The tradition says they're being preserved for a future banquet for the righteous, but the text doesn't explain them much beyond the placement. What it does is complete the picture. Every edge of this cosmos, top, bottom, east, west, is occupied, managed, restrained. Nothing is loose. The storehouses tell you what's above the ceiling. Chapter 14 tells you what's above all of it. This is the oldest known account of a human being entering heaven in the Jewish tradition. Before the Book of Revelation. Before Paul's third heaven in 2 Corinthians. Before the Merkabah mystics and the Hekkalot literature. First Enoch, 14 is first in line. Enoch is lifted by winds, mist, and shooting stars. He reaches a wall built from hailstones or crystal surrounded by tongues of fire. He passes through it and enters the first house. The text says the house is hot as fire and as cold as ice. No delight of life in it. Enoch shakes, he trembles, he falls on his face. There's something about that image that I keep circling, because you'd expect a man walking into heaven to feel awe or wonder or peace, some version of arrival, but the text doesn't give you any of that. It just gives you a man who is terrified and freezing and burning at the same time, lying face down on a floor he can't understand, in a room that contradicts itself. Later, Jewish and Christian descriptions of heaven fill the throne room with crowds. Revelation puts 24 elders around the seat. The Merkabah texts pack it with singing beings. But in First Enoch, the first house is empty and hostile, and God is alone at the end of the corridor. That isolation is the point. This isn't a worship service. This is a restricted area. Then he sees a door into a second house. This one is larger and it's built entirely of fire. And this is the cosmological payoff of the whole book. The floor of this inner house is fire. Above the floor are lightnings and the path of the stars. And the ceiling is also fire. That's chapter 14, verse 17. Sit with that. The stars and the lightning that you see when you look up at night are inside the architecture of this room. The dome over the earth, the one with the gates and the sun's flight path, is the floor of the room where God sits. The boundary between earth and heaven is not empty space, not atmosphere, not distance. It's a floor, not a barrier, a foundation. And on that foundation sits a throne that looks like ice, with wheels or roundness that shine like the sun and rivers of fire flowing underneath it. On the throne sits the great glory. His garments are brighter than the sun, whiter than snow. The radiance that comes off him is what the Mesopotamians called melamu, a force of divine energy so concentrated it doesn't just illuminate. It overwhelms. Do you know who else is in that room with him? Nobody, not one angel. The cherubim and the seraphim, the highest order of heavenly beings in the tradition, cannot enter. They can't look at the face of the one on the throne. The radiance won't let them. But Enoch, a human, stands closer to that throne than any angel in existence. I don't have a read on why that is. I've seen theories, none of them hold up when I push on them, so I'm not going to pick one and dress it up. What the text says is that Enoch saw it and lived. The angels couldn't get to the door. I'll leave that where it sits. If you have a theory on why a human gets closer than the highest angels, I want to hear it. That's the one part of this chapter I keep circling and can't land on. Now, here's what I think the author was doing with all of this, and I'm moving from the text into my own reading, so I want to flag that clearly. The structure Enoch describes, an outer house and an inner house, mirrors the layout of the Jerusalem temple. The Hekal, the main sanctuary hall, and the Devir, the Holy of Holies, same architecture, same progression from the fearful to the more fearful to the presence of God behind the final wall. But the heavenly version has no priests, no corruption, and no calendar anyone can argue about. During the Second Temple period, multiple Jewish communities had lost faith in the earthly temple. They believed the priesthood was compromised, the rituals were wrong, and the calendar the priests were using, a 354-day lunar calendar, was illegitimate. The Qumran community was almost certainly one of these groups, and the 364-day solar calendar built into the firmament's gates matches the calendar found in their scrolls. So when the author of First Enoch describes a perfect temple above the sky, run by perfect angels, on a perfect calendar that's physically woven into the dome itself, he's not writing astronomy, he's writing a protest. The earthly temple is a copy, the heavenly one is the original, and the copy got it wrong. I can't pin down whether the author was writing from inside the Qumran community or adjacent to it. The fragments are there, the calendar lines up, but direct authorship is something nobody in the field has settled, and I'm not going to pretend I have what the scholars are still working on. What kind of person writes a description of heaven so detailed you could almost build it from the text? Someone who believes the one on the ground is broken. One more layer, because this is where the ceiling stops being architecture and starts being law. Enoch is taken to a place at the very edge of the earth where there's no firmament above and no ground below, pure chaos. And in that chaos he sees 7 stars bound together, burning like mountains. Uriel tells him these stars broke the rules. They failed to rise and set at their appointed times. They missed their gates, and for that they're imprisoned at the border of creation, burning until the final judgment. In the ancient world, stars were not just lights. They were beings, spirits, entities with assignments. And the firmament wasn't just a ceiling over the earth, it was a law. Every star that followed its track through the right gate at the right time was obedient. Everyone that strayed was a criminal, chained and burning at the edge of everything. The dome holds up the sky, yes, but it also enforces something. It's a boundary, a calendar, a courtroom, and a prison wall, all at once. And this is what separates Enoch's cosmology from every other ancient sky model I've read. The Babylonians mapped the stars, the Egyptians tracked the seasons, but First Enoch is the only text I know of that takes astronomical regularity and turns it into moral obedience, and then shows you what happens to a star that disobeys. The ceiling isn't passive, it has rules, and the rules have consequences, and the consequences are burning at the edge of reality for 10,000 years. I want to know if that changes how you look up tonight. Because it changed how I look up. If this is the kind of reading you've been looking for, one that takes the text seriously enough to sit with the hard parts, this channel is where I do it. Subscribe and you'll see the next one when it drops. You can open First Enoch tonight. It's free, public domain, every major